The lone genius deep in the forgotten corners of the galaxy, there was a planet so harsh and inhospitable that even the stars themselves seemed reluctant to shine upon it. The surface was covered in jagged, barren rocks, deep ravines, and constant electrical storms that rippled across the atmosphere like deadly veins of energy. The gravity was heavier than most worlds, and the air was thin, tainted with poisonous gases that would crush any living organism that dared to breathe it. The planet had long since been abandoned. Entire civilizations had come and gone, leaving behind only ruins and skeletal remnants of their existence. But there was one person who had made this forsaken place her home. Dr. Evelyn Marks, a brilliant inventor and one of humanity's greatest minds. Dr. Marks had withdrawn from the bustling centers of human civilization to focus on her research that she believed would change the very foundation of the universe. She had once been a star in the vast expanse of galactic politics and scientific communities. Her inventions had powered fleets, revolutionized space travel, and even healed entire colonies. But now, she lived alone in a lab buried deep beneath the surface of this desolate world. Her isolation had been her choice. She had seen too much of the greed, the bureaucracy, and the constant striving for dominance that tainted the galaxy. It wasn't until a cryptic message arrived on her secure communication channel that her peaceful existence would be shattered. The message was short, direct, and deadly. The Zarnax Empire was on the move. The Zarnax were a brutal, advanced race with an insatiable thirst for conquest. They had once been allies of humanity, trading knowledge and technology. But over time, their hunger for power had turned them into something far more sinister. Now, the Zarnax were heading for humanity's homeworld, and they intended to wipe out every last human in the galaxy. The very thought of Zarnax, an empire with an unrivaled fleet and terrifying weaponry, made Dr. Marks' blood run cold. She knew that a direct military confrontation was impossible. Humanity could never stand against the might of the Zarnax in open battle. But Dr. Marks also knew something the Zarnax didn't: the true power of human ingenuity. A plan unfolds. Dr. Marks sat at her desk, staring at the data streaming across the holographic display before her. The Zarnax fleet was vast, far beyond anything humanity had ever faced. But she wasn't afraid. Fear was not something that existed in her mind when it came to problems of this magnitude. Instead, she was calculating, analyzing, and envisioning ways to turn the tables. Her mind raced as she sifted through possible solutions. She didn't have an army or a fleet of warships at her disposal, but she had something far more dangerous: creativity. She had always believed that intelligence could overcome even the greatest odds. After all, wasn't it human ingenuity that had allowed them to survive on dangerous, unknown worlds, build colossal space stations, and conquer the void of space itself? The Zarnax might have a fleet, but they lacked the unpredictable, outside-the-box thinking that humans excelled at. If she could tap into that potential, she might have a chance. As she sifted through her inventory, Dr. Marks found what she was looking for: an old warship, a relic from the last great conflict that humanity had survived. The ship was nothing more than a shell, riddled with holes and systems long past their prime. Yet to Marks, it was the perfect canvas for her plan. She would repair it, retrofit it with the most advanced technology she had at her disposal, and make it something far more than a warship. It would be a decoy. The key to her plan was misdirection. The Zarnax were predictable. They relied on overwhelming force, sheer numbers, and brute strength. But they were not prepared for subtlety, for the kind of trap that Dr. Marks had in mind. She would make them believe they were facing an entire fleet when, in reality, they would only be dealing with one ship, a ship that could outsmart them at every turn. The process would take time, effort, and ingenuity. But Dr. Marks was nothing if not patient. The masterpiece for weeks, Dr. Marks worked tirelessly on the warship. The ship was a ghost of its former self, but she saw potential in every broken piece. The engines were barely functioning, the hull was battered and worn, and many of the systems were long obsolete. But it was in the ship's core, the central reactor and the internal systems, that Dr. Marks found her true challenge. Using her knowledge of advanced human engineering, she began to overhaul the ship's power core, adding layers of shielding and energy redirection systems. She modified the weapons systems, not to create more firepower, but to create the illusion of overwhelming force. The weapons would fire sporadically, appearing far more dangerous than they were. She installed stealth systems that would allow the ship to appear and disappear at will, creating confusion and fear in the Zarnax fleet. And then she added the final touch, a network of decoy signals that would make the ship appear as though it were surrounded by an entire fleet. Multiple false energy signatures would be broadcasted, making it appear as if Dr. Marks were leading a full-scale invasion. By the time she was finished, the warship was no longer a simple relic. It was a trap, a weapon of psychological warfare. If the Zarnax didn't fall for her trap, she would be dead. If they did, however, the galaxy would have a fighting chance. The Zarnax approach as the Zarnax fleet approached. Dr. Marks watched from the safety of her hidden lab, deep within the planet's crust. The fleet was massive. Hundreds of warships, each one larger than any human vessel. They were coming in, full force, confident in their superiority. But Dr. Marks had one advantage they couldn't see: her mind. She activated the ship's systems and set course for the heart of the Zarnax fleet. Her ship, disguised as a massive flagship, slowly moved into the system, sending out the carefully calculated decoy signals. The Zarnax, sensing an opportunity to strike, locked onto her vessel and began to close in. Dr. Marks let them come. She knew the moment they engaged, she would have the perfect opportunity to strike. She had studied the Zarnax tactics for years, and she knew exactly how they would respond. They would attack with full force, underestimating the threat that she posed. The first strike, the Zarnax fleet opened fire. Energy blasts of unimaginable power rocketed toward Dr. Marks's ship. The ship's shields flared as they absorbed the energy, redirecting it harmlessly into space. The Zarnax were confused. They expected to obliterate her in a single shot, but instead, their attacks were thwarted. The next part of Dr. Marks's plan unfolded. She activated the false fleet, a series of decoy signals that scattered across the battlefield, making it appear as if multiple ships were attacking the Zarnax fleet from different angles. The Zarnax commanders, overwhelmed by the sudden appearance of numerous targets, ordered their ships to scatter. Chaos erupted as they tried to regroup, each ship responding to threats that didn't exist. But Dr. Marks wasn't done yet. With the fleet disorganized and vulnerable, she activated a series of EMP pulses that disrupted the Zarnax fleet's communication systems. For the first time, the Zarnax were blind. Their ships couldn't coordinate their movements. The entire fleet was in disarray. It was in this chaos that Dr. Marks made her move. She initiated a full system override on the Zarnax ships within range, locking them into an automated cycle. They were trapped in their own systems, unable to fight back. The fall of the Zarnax Empire. The Zarnax fleet was crippled. Dozens of their ships drifted helplessly, their weapons inert and their systems locked. Dr. Marks's ship, once thought to be a lone target, now became a symbol of humanity's victory. With the Zarnax fleet in disarray, human forces, long kept in the shadows, launched a devastating counterattack. The Zarnax had underestimated humanity's ingenuity, and now they were paying the price. The empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries was now on the brink of collapse. Their military dominance was shattered, and their once unassailable position in the galaxy was no more. Dr. Marks had done what no one thought possible. She had outsmarted them, a legacy of ingenuity. Years later, as Dr. Marks looked out at the stars from her isolated lab, she couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. The Zarnax were no more, and humanity had emerged victorious. Her name had become a legend across the galaxy, whispered in awe by every species that heard her story. She had shown the galaxy that human ingenuity could overcome even the most insurmountable odds. Dr. Marks had saved humanity, not with weapons or armies, but with ingenuity. And in doing so, she had given the galaxy a new future, a future where anything was possible. her legacy would never be forgotten. For in a galaxy full of endless possibilities, one human mind had proven that anything was achievable.